One of the many benefits of attending baseball games at Dietrich Park is you never know who you're likely to meet at the game.
That you shouldn't live in the past. It's dangerous. But to visit it is just a wonderful experience.
And he drills this one deep to right, going. It's a home run. The Mets win by a score of 3-2. The Mets hit deep to right field by Carl Willie. It is gone. A grand slam home run. Running through my life. Left center field is going to be a base hit. A base hit by Jimmy Qualls, and it breaks up the perfect game. 9:07 on September 24th, the Mets have won the championship of the Eastern Division of the National League. Up to get to, A.G. is going, and A.G. takes it down, big catch. Gamble, he's coming, here's the throw, and he is out at home plate. Deep to left, out of here. Gary Carter, a game-winning home run in the bottom of the 10th.
Swing and a miss, he got him at the fastball. 9th strikeout. It's got to be the
He struck him out. The Mets have won the World Series, and they're jamming and crowding all over Jesse Orozco. The dream has come true.
The history of New York Mets baseball. An amazing era.
Really disleveled at that point in time. Their farm system was kind of drained. They had finished last or next to last for 4 or 5 consecutive years. And I guess I just couldn't resist the opportunity to at least try to turn it around.
For a while, the magic was back at Shea, and there were even brief periods when the Mets made people believers again. Like the night Steve Henderson hit a dramatic game-winning homer in the 9th inning to stun the Giants, during a summer when the Mets played close to 500 ball before finally fading out of the race. Slowly but surely, the Mets were showing signs of making a comeback. Neil Allen completed 3 outstanding seasons and was recognized as one of the league's top relievers, while John Stearns made the All-Star team 2 more times.
Neil Patrick Allen was born January 24th, 1958 in Kansas City, Kansas. He was the Mets' ace reliever during the terrible days of the early 80s. He played from 1979 through 1983 with the Mets. Then he played with the St. Louis Cardinals, having been traded for Keith Hernandez. Then played with the New York Yankees and also the Chicago White Sox. He ended his career in 1989 with the Cleveland Indians. Neil was principally known for his terrific abilities as a relief pitcher. He's also one of the few players to have played for both the New York Mets and the New York Yankees. Here, Neil, explain what it was like to play in both teams in New York.
The ex-Mets, so he don't really make it a habit to go and trade for him. But at the same time, it was a lot of fun because I had my kids in New York, and I enjoyed spending, 8 of my almost my 12 years were in New York in the major leagues. So I enjoyed it very, very much. It's a place for people who aren't real sensitive, put it that way. If you're sensitive and you're thin-skinned, New York's not the place for you. But I just happen to enjoy it. It took an awful lot to rattle me. I feel that I had a kind of a different disposition where you couldn't really get under my skin. And I enjoyed it very much there. The people treated me really good there. A lot of people don't feel that way. But I was just one of the fortunate ones that happened to really love playing in New York, and I enjoyed it there.
Well, you got to tell us quickly about the story of you striking yourself out because you were the only guy in the history of baseball that's done that. Now, how is that possible?
Well, I was with the New York Mets, and I got traded to the St. Louis Cardinals, and at the time of the trade, there was a rain delay game against St. Louis that had to be continued. Well, I was the hitter. I had 2 strikes against me at that time. The trade was made. The rain delay came, and so the next time we faced the St. Louis Cardinals, it was a continuation game. Well, the guy that came up and hit for me, I believe the count was like 1-2, he struck out. So Neil Allen gets the credit for the strikeout, and so there I am. I struck myself out. So that's basically how the story kind of had. It's not a record I really care about having, but I got it.
But you got it. I heard you say earlier you're still waiting for that '86 ring, right?
Well, yeah. You know, I keep asking Fred Wilpon and some of the New York Mets upper brass people there. When I go to Brooklyn to play against them, where my '86 World Championship ring is, and they kind of look at me funny, and I go, "Hey, wait a minute! I got you one of the best first basemen in baseball." And I said, this guy helped you win a World Series? I said, you couldn't have got him without me, so where's my ring? So, of course, they laugh it off, and we keep moving on, but I always make it a point to bring it up to them whenever I see them.
You having fun?
For the record, on June 15th, 1983, arguably the best trade the Mets ever made occurred. Keith Hernandez, here seen on the left, came to the New York Mets from St. Louis for Neil Allen on the right. As it turns out, Keith Hernandez solidified the infield, talked sense to the pitchers by approaching them on the mound with good advice, and batted a solid .306 to lead the team. Neil Allen, while in St. Louis, had a good record of 2-0, but thereafter faded. And sort of fell off, while Keith Hernandez went on to have many, many all-star years.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I mean, there again, I'm back in New York. I know a lot of people in New York. I'm enjoying it very much, but it's right in the back door of Yankee Stadium, and there's a lot of pressure to win in Staten Island from the Yankee upper echelon people, and I'm aware of that, and I know that, and so hopefully we'll get it done and keep everybody happy, and George will keep me around for another year.
All right, Neil. Thanks for.
Terrific. At the season 1976, the Mets management made a change, firing Joe Frazier and hiring Joe Torre. And it would be Joe Torre who would have an impact on an awful lot of players on the New York Mets, including Neil Allen. And Neil Allen, go way back to the Mets.
Oh, yes, we do.
Oh,
yes, we
you
do.
gotta be
And
kidding
we
me.
still speak all the time in spring training. We have, we speak a lot in spring training. And one of the reasons I came over here was because I had a talk with Joe. And, you know, he told me about the possibility of some things happening in the future and that kind of thing. And so I wanted to come back where I knew people. Lee Mazzilli and me were roommates for a couple of years. He's the first base coach. Of course, Joe's the manager. There's just a lot of people that I know around that organization and that I've known for many, many years and I feel comfortable with. And I feel that there's an opportunity for me to ever get back to the big leagues. It's with people who care about you and know you. And so hopefully that opportunity will come, and maybe it'll come here with the Yankees with those guys up above me.
Why was the decision made to make you a relief pitcher?
I was what you call a short starter. I'd go out 2 1/3, 3 1/3, 4 1/3. I was a two-pitch pitcher. I was a fastball, curveball guy. I didn't have a changeup.
Mm-hmm. But
I had real good spring training when I was that year in '79 spring training, and so we decided to take me north. The New York Mets were loaded with a lot of abundance of starters,
mm-hmm.
and so it was time to make the decision, and they decided to go with me. So they took me up north, and I started out okay, but I think I was like 1-5 and not doing real well. I had about a 4 ERA, 3 ERA in the middle there, to the upper threes. So Joe came to me one day. We had a closer named Skip Lockwood.
Mm-hmm.
Skip Lockwood had a career-ending injury, basically, they thought, and he was out for a good year or more. And so they came to me that day and they go, listen, you're hyper, you're a little wound up, you're having a tough time sitting for 5 days to redeem yourself. Have you ever thought about being a relief pitcher? You ever thought about going to the bullpen? Has your arm ever had that situation where you throw a couple days in a row? And I go, no, I haven't. And he goes, well, we're going to try it. I said, okay. Well, I went to the bullpen, and right away they threw me in closing situations, which surprised the heck out of me because I thought they would groom my arm a little bit and see if I could do it and bounce back, which that was not the problem at all. And so I ended up absolutely loving closing, and it was a lot of fun. And the thing that I liked about it the best is just like Joe said, he goes, you're not the type of kid that can sit for 5 days in between starts. You've got too much energy, you're too wound up. And he goes, so we're going to try that bullpen move. And he did, and of course that's where I made my career. Was in the bullpen, and actually he probably saved my career in a lot of ways because I was real close to going back to the minor leagues. Probably another start or so, and I was going to the minor leagues. So I was probably within 5 days of going back to the minor leagues if Joe didn't make that decision to put me in the bullpen. So he saved me in a lot of ways.
Well, and made whatever smiles Greg Peterson had were there because of Neil Allen. I remember those dog days of the early 80s. They were tough.
They were tough times, but at the same time, if you had any professionalism in you, and in those days, you were taught in the minor leagues when a coach told you to do something, you jumped and you said, sure, I want you to jump, you say how high. I want you to run 30 pulls, you ran 40 pulls. That's just the way it was back then. And nowadays, you've got to handle things and situations because there's so much money involved. You've got to be a little bit delicate in your choice of words because now kids got agents. They call the agents call New York. Then you got to hear feedback from New York. So you got to, it's a whole different world of coaching and teaching as compared to when I came up in the 70s to now.
In opening day, 1983, if you're a Mets fan, they bring back Tom Seaver, and they don't.
Also during that period, Tom Seaver returned to Shea. The Mets had reacquired Seaver before the 1983 season, and on opening day, he pitched before an adoring crowd of close to 50,000 people. Seaver threw 6 innings of shutout ball in his return engagement, although he didn't get the win. But with Seaver pitching well and the Mets winning, it was like the good old days at Shea again.
That he's either going to pitch until shortly before the end. Do you remember that day?
Oh, absolutely, because there was some talk in spring training that he might have some soreness or some stiffness or something of that nature. We all knew he was going to pitch, but we weren't at liberty to say anything to the media about it because they wanted to make it a big deal because I knew that it was a big fan attraction too. And in my 4 or 5 opening days there with the New York Mets before the Tom Seaver arrival, I'd never seen an opening day crowd like that. So that's when I really realized, I mean, I'd watched Tom Seaver, of course, on TV like everybody else for many years, and I never had him as a teammate. And then when he came back and threw that opening day, and I saw what opening day was all about, and I saw the vibrations and the atmosphere at Shea Stadium on opening day, that's when I realized, I go, so this is what New York's all about.
Right.
And it was a tremendous feeling. And I always told myself that I would always cherish that day because that was the one day that I remember Shea Stadium just capacity full, people everywhere, loud, And I go, boy, it must be something here to be in a playoff and World Series.
Mhm.
I would have loved to have been there, but I wasn't.
Yeah. A couple of players that came through while you were there, Dave Kingman.
Yes. Dave Kingman was he was a moody individual. That's no big secret. Dave was the type of guy where if he went 1 for 3, 1 for 4, good guy. 2 for 4, real good guy. But he was the type of guy, if he took a couple of offers right in a row, 0 for 4, 0 for 3, and did that in a row, and the media would approach him and ask him a question that he just didn't agree with, he could turn on you in a heartbeat. And but that was Dave. We all knew that that's the way the Kong was. I mean, that was Kong, and we knew he was moody. We knew his attitude. We knew his atmosphere. And I could come to the locker room that day, and I could go, "Hey, Kong, how you doing?" And if he didn't say much, I knew keep my distance from him that day. But if he was friendly and cordial, he's a good guy. But you knew that. And of course, after 5, 6, 7 months of living together, day in and day out, you know the guys you can kid with, you know the guys you can't kid with, and you keep your distance, you go about your business and do your job, and don't worry about the moody ones that are out there. And they're there.
Rusty Staub came back then.
Yes. Rusty Staub was the only guy I think that could get up at 3:30 in the morning, right out of bed, and hit a line drive to left center, right center. That guy, I mean, I've never seen him. I've never seen him sit during a ball game where he wasn't studying a pitcher, looking for the glove, kind of like a breaking ball, finger lifting off the glove. His leg doesn't come as high when he's throwing a breaking ball as opposed to a fastball, or vice versa. That man would sit there and study pitchers like nobody I ever knew. And the thing that was good about him is he would give his knowledge to all the other young hitters on the bench. And these guys, as their careers went on, if you got traded or you passed them along the way, he would hear them talk about Rusty's ways.
Mhm.
Hey, so-and-so's leg doesn't come up. And I go, "How Rusty taught you that?" And they go, "Yeah, he did." And so he's got a lot of input in this game today with a lot of guys that sat next to him and learned how he picks up, giving away pitches and tips and things like that. He taught a lot of guys a lot of things about picking up tips on guys giving away their pitches.
You ever take you over to his house and treat you to those gourmet meals he...
Oh, no, but I went to Rusty's restaurant in the city, of course. Yeah, he had the best baby back ribs in the city. And we all went there, and, Rusty had a few of them himself, but he was a good teammate. He was very reserved, wasn't real open with the public or his teammates, kind of kept to himself a little bit, but you respected that, and you knew that, and that's the way Rusty was.
George Foster.
George, I only played with him for, 2 or 3 years, I think it was, and nice man, hard worker, kept to himself quite a bit. You never really knew what George was thinking. He was the type of guy that would come to the ballpark and he'd be in the cage at, like I said, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30 in the afternoon. Worked as hard as anybody. But in his defense, I think that when we got him, he was our first big name, really big name player that we had acquired in my time there. He was the first big name. And I think that George came in there and tried to throw up the numbers and maintain the level of baseball play that he had when he was with the Cincinnati Reds. Well, if he took an 0 for one night, an 0 for 4 or something like that, or a couple nights, the fans were just abusive of him. He was thin-skinned, and he didn't really like that too much. He was a heck of a competitor, but he also would fight himself to bring himself out of that slump a little bit harder because he wanted to win over New York as quickly as he possibly could. And you don't do that in New York. You don't come into New York and win them over quickly like that. But he was very professional, he worked hard, and it just so happens that he had a couple off years right there and the fans were on him very hard, and I think George took that to heart quite a bit.
The Mets were building a solid foundation from within. And nowhere was that more evident than in the play of 2 of their more popular players, Hubie Brooks and Mookie Wilson. But Cashin still felt the team needed outside help.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Sheila and George Foster.
George Foster was obtained in a trade with the Cincinnati Reds in 1982 and represented for Met fans a clear signal that the Doubleday regime was dedicated to rebuilding the franchise. Foster also gave the Mets a power hitter to go along with Dave Kingman, who had been reacquired in 1981. Staub was also glad to be a part of the Mets' comeback. Staub had returned to the team in 1981 and became baseball's premier pinch hitter, especially in 1983 when his 24 pinch hits led the majors and his 25 pinch hit RBIs tied a major league record.
You got to ask the question about this and fill in the blank because it's the funniest thing that ever happened to me, says Neil Allen. So as far as anecdotes, things that have happened to you that you'd say, you can't believe this happened, other than just striking yourself out, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Is there anything that strikes you during your career that is really an humorous incident?
Oh, there's a bunch of them. I'm just trying to think where the heck to start. You'd have to give me time to think about them because there's been a load of them. I remember one time at Shea Stadium, I was ordering a pizza. And I called the pizza place at Shea Stadium, and I told them to deliver it to the bullpen at Shea Stadium. And I went out to the gate to pay for it, the bullpen, and I'm giving the lady the change, and I think it's WOR Channel 9.
Right.
They got the camera zoomed in on me paying the pizza guy and giving him a tip. And Joe Torre saw this, and it was on the news and everything at Shea Stadium. And oh, boy, the next day he fined me $500. And what are you doing? I said, I was just buying a bullpen of pizza. And that was one little episode that I know I got caught with. I went out there one night and pitched with the wrong number on. Joe let me have that one. Because he's got my name on the scorecard.
Yeah.
And I'm out there warming up, and I got to leave the game to go put on my right jersey, then come back out and pitch. So he was pretty hot about that night. There was a few things. I always did hot foot to people. I was always lighting people on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Learned that from Tug McGraw.
How does it work?
You sneak up behind a guy, especially a guy that's been talking and chirping quite a bit like that, and you're kind of getting a little annoyed with him, and enough's enough. So when he's sitting there, you crawl down underneath the bench because the benches extend off the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is you go down to there on the bench and you crawl, you shimmy all the way down to where he's at. And you get a piece of gum or you get a piece of tape and you get some toilet paper and you roll it up in a fine little like cigarette type thing. And you stick it right underneath the back of his shoe, right on here. And you let it burn all the way down. And then it burns to his shoe and the leather starts burning and smoke everywhere and stink. So we call it hot foot. And so a lot of times I would burn guys' shoes, burn their feet when they were getting annoying on the bench and stuff like that. And so whenever I was on the bench, they'd always be watching me because they because I was a closer and I didn't have to go down there usually till the 7th inning. And so I'd be hanging out for 5 or 6 innings and everybody would go, get out of here, get him out of here. So Joe, some nights would just say, you, get out of here. Because they didn't trust me because I was always up to something.
Were you saddened when Joe was fired?
When Joe got fired, I felt bad because, to me, I always remember him as the guy that gave me my first opportunity to pitch in the major leagues. And I think that everybody feels that way, you know. You got to respect the guy that gave you the opportunity to make it to the major leagues. And he's the one that really saved my career by putting me in the bullpen. I respect him for that. And he was a player's manager. I still try to use his tactics a little bit in my coaching. I don't get in people's faces. I'm firm at the point where I'm firm, but they know where I'm coming from. And I don't like to ring kids out. I don't like to yell at kids, but when I have a meeting, I expect them to look me in the eyes, and when I have something to say, I want to see your eyes. I don't want to see the heads looking over. I'll give you respect, you give me respect. This game doesn't owe you nothing. Until you show it respect, it'll show you respect. You're in the New York Penn League. Nobody owes you nothing. You're working your way up the ladder. And until you get up that ladder, and you get up there, and you show people you belong there, then you'll get your respect. But right now, all you have to do is respect me and respect what you're doing out there on the mound, and you'll find some success. But this game doesn't owe you nothing yet. You better respect the game until you get there, and then it'll show you some respect back.
And that's what Joe taught you?
I think so. I think that Joe taught me a lot about that. That when I got up there, I was a young kid and had a lot of maturing to do and a lot to learn. And he told me that one day. And, you know, I remember one day I was pressing. I was like 0-3 in the major leagues. And Rube Walker came and talked to me. And he said to me, he goes, hey, do me a favor. He goes, where's the young kid that I had in Florida that didn't give a damn about nothing? He goes, up here, he goes, I see you change. He goes, I see you're worried about your numbers. I see you're worried about this, you're worried about that. He goes, where's the kid that I saw that was throwing the hell out of the fastball and the curveball down in Florida? And I remember that. And he says, as long as you're pressing, I'm never going to get the best out of your abilities. And when you start pressing what you're doing right now, I've lost you. And so when I see a kid out there trying to do too much, like a young kid comes up from the Gulf Coast League, wants to impress us and wants to stay here instead of going back down, and he'll go out there and I see him overthrowing right away, I stop him. And I go out and I talk to him. And I said, hey, I heard you threw a good moving fastball, or you got a good 12-6 curveball. Where is it? relax. You're not going nowhere. You're here. I got to comfort him to make sure he knows he's here. He's not going back. But I got to get him to believe in me.
Right.
And I can't go out there with this look on my face like, hey, come on, what are you doing? I got to go out there with a little smile on my face, relax him, calm him, and let him know that I'm not worried. I don't want to see you press. Do I look worried? Why should you be worried? You ain't going nowhere. So you may as well just relax and settle in and throw this ball to the plate the way I hear that you're that good. So enjoy yourself. Relax out here. And I learned that from Rube Walker, how to relax and how to get back to the basics. Don't forget what got you here, he said. And you weren't pressing in Florida, because if you're pressing in Florida, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
And I remember Rube told me that.
Who had Neil Allen's number? When you pitched out...
Ooh, I'll tell you right now, Dave Concepcion.
Is that right?
Everybody in the league would get Dave out. I think he was like a 235, 240 hitter. Dave Concepcion owned me. And it got so bad that after about 7 or 8 years of facing him, that one day in Cincinnati, I got like a 3-run lead or something like that with 2 outs. And he came up and he even kind of smiled. We both knew he owed me. He hit 1,000. And he came up there and I just went, fastball. And he looked and he goes, and so I threw it, and I forgot about corner this and corner that and climbed the ladder here. I go, hell with it. I can't get him out anyway. So I just told him to fastball. And Joe's looking out there, and Davey's laughing, and I'm kind of snickering. I go, I can't get him out anyway. And sure enough, he hit that thing, and he hit a rocket right at Doug Flynn, my second baseman. I'll never forget about it. Tore his glove off, but I got him out.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only time I ever got the guy out in my entire career. And I told him what was coming. So that was the guy that absolutely owned me. And then another guy that hit me pretty darn good, but I got him out a few times, was Rick Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Monday, that guy wore me out pretty doggone good too. But his weren't base hits. If I faced him probably 25 times, there had to be doubles in the gaps or he hit him 500 feet. That's just the way it was. And I remember my rookie year, we go out to San Francisco, we're playing the Giants. I'm pitching, my first game ever, I'm pitching out in San Francisco in Candlestick Park. I'm pitching against Vida Blue. So I'm kind of pumped up. I mean, Vida Blue, I watched him pitch when I was a kid in high school in the World Series and All-Star game and Vida Blue. And so they're giving me the scouting report for the game. We want you to pitch this guy this way. And they go, okay, McCovey, you got a good fastball. You know, you throw the ball 95, 96 miles. Let it go. Tie him up inside. He ain't got a quick bat no more like you used to. You can get him out in. You can pound him in. Okay. Willie McCovey come up there. I'll never forget it. And I'm going, okay, fastball in. I threw him a fastball in. To this day, it was the longest home run I ever got in my entire life. It was my third start in the majors. I'll never forget it. And he hit it in the 4th tier in Candlestick Park, and it was still flying when it was going. He hit the thing like 550. And I'll never forget that. And I looked over the bench, and I go, I thought you said you didn't have a quick bat. And they just started, the whole bench was laughing because I was even in amazement because I looked at it and I just watched it fly. And the only thing I could think of was give myself credit and say I threw hard because there's no way that one man could generate that much power. And I remember watching it fly out and I just go, that's unbelievable. And so I remember watching him, but that was something to see a guy getting ready to retire 45, 46 years old, and he turned on me my best fastball. And I think that kind of woke me up that day that, hey, kid, you know, you might be able to throw that hard and stuff like that. And hey, God bless you, good for you. But you ain't gonna get it by big leaguers. We don't care how hard you throw. And I learned a lesson that day, hard lesson.
Your highlight.
Oh gosh, the highlight of my career. I would have to say it was my first save in Pittsburgh. I remember coming in with the bases loaded, and I struck out the first 2 guys, and I'm facing Willie Stargell.
Mm.
And to me, I mean, this was the family and 7-time world champions, and I remember coming in there in that game, and I struck out I want to say Lee Lacy and Bill Madlock, and now I got Willie Stargell coming up, and I remember I struck him out on 3 pitches. With the bases, I struck out the side with the bases loaded in the bottom of the ninth. That's something I'll never forget because it was my first save in the majors, and I can vividly remember the curveball. It was one of the best curveballs I think I ever threw in my life, and I struck out Willie Stargell. And I think that after I got that save and got out of that jam that day, I kind of felt that I belonged. Right. I felt like I could do the job. And by doing that day in Pittsburgh, I think that just lifted my spirits and lifted that I felt a sense of belonging. And I'll never forget that striking out Willie Stargell with the bases loaded from our first save. That was probably something I think that really motivated me that I belong here and I'm here.
And you were, I was so proud of you for the several years you were with the Mets. I tell you, you were it.
Well, yeah, you know, I have some regrets at times, sure. I did some things I shouldn't have done. I got caught in the fast lane at night there towards the end of my career in New York with the Mets, and I can learn from that, and I did learn from that, and now I can take it to these kids. If I see some kids getting off the beat path of where they're supposed to be, I can straighten them out in a hurry, because I know it, I've been there. You're not fooling me. I know every back stairway of every hotel in every league in baseball. You're not tricking me. I'll sit on the back stairways and read the papers sometimes at 12:30 after curfew, and I'll catch 6 or 7 of them come in. I go, do you guys think that I never use the back stairways? But there's just a lot of things that by my mistakes that I made, it made me a better person. I think it's made me a better coach. And I can relate to these kids a lot better because I've been there and done everything that they can possibly imagine ahead of them. And so when they try to pull a fast one over me, they're barking up the wrong tree. And so that's pretty much if I had a regret, it was getting off the beaten path and instead of taking care of business. And I was going through some personal things, divorce and all that stuff, which is not an excuse. I let it be an excuse, and I learned from that too. And but in this, like I said, in the long run, I didn't just go through it. I went through it, but I learned from it. And so these kids, I can help them tremendously in that way with a lot of things on the field with their pitching as well as off the field.
This is terrific. Thank you.
Well, I hope so. I hope so.
Well, I've had fun. Bill Monboquette sat in that same chair.
Oh my gosh, I love Bill Monboquette.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people of all time. I learned an awful lot from him when I came out of high school.
Yeah.
And he taught me an awful lot. And to this day, I think about him. As a matter of fact, when I was just out there by the cage, I was just asking about Bill Monboquette because I ask everybody that's seen him. I don't get a chance to play against him this year. And I think the world of him, and anybody that mentions Bill Monboquette, I get fired up because I love that man, and there ain't nothing in the world I wouldn't do for him. He taught me how to pitch. I came out of high school, and he was my first pitching coach and manager right out of high school.
No.
And he taught me a lot. I thought I was good. He told me I wasn't. And he told me what it took to be good. And I'll never forget that. And then I got the opportunity to coach him in Toronto for 5 or 6 years, and he taught me a whole load of stuff about coaching. How to communicate with the players, how to relax them, how to kid with them, how to talk with them. He's got a story for everything. I got a story for everything. I enjoy telling stories. Mambo enjoys telling stories. Mambo was well liked and respected by the players in Toronto. I followed that lead. I watched how he did things. And so I pick up a little bit of things here. I got some stuff from Joe Torre. I got some stuff from Whitey Herzog. I got some stuff from Bill Monboquette. And I just try to use it all together. So what would these guys do here? What would they do here? What would Joe say here? What would Mambo say here? I throw those guys to my mind more than they'll ever know. Because I can't do it by myself. I'll be honest. I learned from them, and I always ask myself, what would they do? Would they be jumping down some throats right now, or would they handle it very articulate? How would they do it? And I do reflect on those guys a lot. Whitey Herzog was one of the best managers I ever had in my entire life. Players manager. Laid back. Easy. But he got his point across. And you knew where you stood with him. And that's how I try to approach these guys. Joe Torre, players manager. You knew where you stood with him. He didn't have to raise his voice to you. He told you what he wanted. You know what he wanted. You do it or you're gone. It's that simple. But you do it in a tone where they understand you, in a respectful voice, where they respect you for approaching them in that situation. No more conversation. Rube Walker, about relaxing. Bill Monboquette, how to reach these players today. So everybody's helped me a lot, and they still do, because there's a lot of times on the bench, situations will come up every day. Tonight, something will come up, and I may reflect and think about one of them. What will they do? What would they do right here? So those guys are always with me, because I can't do it alone. I need help, and those guys don't know it, but they're helping me achieve my goal of getting back to the big leagues as a coach by using their philosophies. I would like to be in the big leagues. I would prefer to be in the bullpen, I'll tell you why, because that's what I did my whole career. That I know how to warm up. I know who's on deck. I know who's on the bench. This guy's hits you with this guy's hits you with that. Tell the guys that while they're warming up, and that's what a bullpen coach does. I know that this guy's got a good slider, and that guy on the bench is a good slider hitter. You know, I enjoy preparing guys in the bullpen, and that's what I would love to do. Pitching coach situation arrives? Sure, absolutely. Sure. I mean, I wouldn't turn it down ever. But my number one thing right now would be to go to the bullpen. Why? Be out there for 2, 3, 4 years. Learn how them guys on the bench are operating. Just like I was saying, I learned how to coach to get me this far. Watch how they operate on the bench. Just because you played, a lot of people think, oh, well, he knows. You don't know. Yeah. Coaching and playing is 2 different things. I've learned so much in the last 6, 7 years of coaching that I thought I knew it all because I played. I didn't know anything. And I'm learning. And I would like to go up to the big leagues as a bullpen coach, study the guys on the bench for a few years, and then if the opportunity arrives, then go in there when I'm prepared. I'm not saying I'm not prepared to do it now if the opportunity came, but at the same time, if the situation doesn't have to rush me in there, let me sit in the bullpen for a couple of years so that when I do go in there, I know that I'll be even better.
Sure.
So.
Terrific.
I'm Kristen Stein, Director of the Fenton History Center in Jamestown, New York. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation, which is just one of many stories from our community's rich history. The Fenton History Center preserves our shared history through the presentation of educational programs and exhibits, the maintenance of a collection of local artifacts and archival materials, and a library specializing in local history and genealogy, all for the benefit and use of the public. For more information about the Fenton History Center and its activities, call 664-6256.